Thick stone cannot smother a royal argument. Staff say the sound carries anyway, low voices hardening, a clipped sentence becoming a slash, then the unmistakable heat of a father and son who have run out of polite words. The palace walls were built to keep history out, lately they have been forced to swallow it whole. King Charles III and Prince William were never meant to be opponents, and yet insiders talk of moments when the future and the present grind like gears, when duty and blood collide in rooms lined with portraits of those who paid less for power because they never had to argue with the person who would inherit it. Rumors swirl, aides deny, sources soften, but in the corridors the story is simpler. Sometimes you can hear the crown shout at itself. The fault line is old. It begins with a childhood shadow, a marriage that exploded on front pages, a mother adored and wounded, a father condemned and complicated. The late Diana's heartbreak still sits in the family air like a fragrance that never quite fades. Whenever the past is touched, the present bristles. William learned early that loyalty had to be visible. Charles learned that privacy was survival. Those two philosophies grew up, put on uniforms, and now attend meetings with each other. Add the unforgiving rhythm of modern monarchy, 24/7 cameras, zero forgiveness, infinite speculation, and you have the perfect storm for sharp words to travel through stone. Insiders do not claim constant war. They talk of stretches of smooth teamwork punctured by short, fierce bursts, the kind of frank exchanges that leave the silence glowing. One moment becomes legend, the ivory argument. William wanted symbols purged, relics of another age removed or destroyed to prove a new ethic. Charles, curator by instinct, wanted history preserved, ugly truths kept and explained rather than burned. It wasn't policy, it was identity. Conservation versus cleansing. It ended, staff say, not in agreement but in exhaustion, the kind that lives in the walls and rattles china days later. Then there is the choreography that betrays the cold. Aides hint that William rarely calls directly. The calendar must bless the conversation first. A son schedules his father through the private office the way ministers do. It is not hatred, it is distance. Palace people call it process. Outsiders call it frost. And when they do speak, the words often begin as strategy and end as biography. Charles wants a measured tempo, a monarchy that moves in well-spaced steps. William wants sharp cuts and clean lines, a brand that breaks with the mess without blinking. In another century they would have argued by letter. In this one, staff on either side of a heavy door pretend not to listen. The heat rises whenever Harry's name enters the room. The king has moved toward reconciliation, a painstaking, hesitant thaw that keeps breaking and refreezing. The Duke of Sussex has spoken of squabbling, of rare moments when father and elder brother looked like allies again. But brotherhood remains the hardest scene to stage. For William, the line between compassion and capitulation is razor-thin. For Charles, the line between father and king is worse. Every attempt at warmth risks headlines, every refusal at contact becomes a headline. This is the paradox neither man can beat. In Windsor, silence is scandal and speech is scandal, too. What makes the present friction feel different is that it bleeds into professional terrain. The future of the monarchy is not an abstract, it is a set of daily decisions. Should the crown torch every symbol that smells like yesterday, or should it keep them under glass with a label that says never again? Should disgraced relatives be erased or allowed to fade slowly? Should reconciliation be photographed or whispered? William is the blade, Charles is the balm. Together they are supposed to be balance. But balance requires weight on both sides, and lately the scale keeps tipping into raised voices, then a slammed pause, then the ritual of aides disinfecting the atmosphere with phrases like lockstep on the big picture. There are days when they truly are. When the doors close and the briefings match, king and heir move like a single animal, investitures smooth as silk, national moments handled with the kind of quiet that earns respect. William respects his father's lifetime of waiting. Charles admires his son's refusal to waste that inheritance on platitudes. They both want a crown that feels clean and solid in a cynical century. But even on good days the fault lines hum. A glance becomes a question becomes a principle, and suddenly the temperature is climbing again. Staff talk about the sound of it because sound is the only proof they can safely offer. Angry rows heard through thick walls, one long-timer mutters, and the phrase sticks because it feels cinematic and true. You imagine the scene, a high room, a long table, papers ranked like soldiers, two men circling the same sentence from different directions. William's jaw tightens when he thinks the moment demands decisiveness. Charles's hands move in small, calming arcs when he thinks the family must not be torn for the sake of applause. Somewhere beyond the door, a clock keeps royal time as if time alone will resolve anything. Into this comes the new era of controlled candor. The heir sits across from a Hollywood traveler and admits that 2024 nearly broke him. Life tests us, he says, and you can hear the exam still echoing. The king releases careful notes about his own health, framed to offer courage and demand privacy at once. Crisis, illness, scrutiny, all of it forces proximity and yet invites fresh friction. When both sovereign and successor are fighting their own storms, tolerance can evaporate faster. Words come out sharper. The same old wounds open in new ways. Is the relationship worse than usual? Palace voices insist it isn't, this is simply their weather. They spar, they cool, they work. They do not live in the same room, and they never really did. Their unity is real when the cameras demand it, their division is real when the doors are thick enough. Both truths can exist without cancelling each other. But the idea that the walls have listened? That feels like a warning as much as a tease. If walls can hear, microphones can, too. If staff can flinch, the public can judge. And judgment is the currency these two men are trying to protect. The nightmare is not a single explosive fallout, it is corrosion. Small frictions pile into large patterns. A scheduled call instead of a spontaneous check-in. A compromise treated as cowardice by one and as wisdom by the other. A phrase chosen for a statement that feels a degree too soft, or a degree too hard. In a family where verbs move markets, tone becomes policy. And policy shapes legacy. Charles wants his to read as steadiness after turbulence, William wants his to announce a clean era. Those are not mutually exclusive until the moment they are. So the palace breathes and pretends its stones are deaf. The king's office answers the heir's office, the heir's diary threads itself around the king's. On some evenings they part with a clipped nod and the knowledge that tomorrow will be easier. On others they part with a silence that weighs more than words ever could. Staff straighten chairs, collect papers, and refuse eye contact because that is the first commandment of service. You saw nothing, you heard nothing, you will remember nothing except the echo that lingers after an argument between a crown and the person who will wear it next. And yet this is how monarchies survive, not by never fighting, but by learning where to place the fight. In public they move as one, the choreography tight, the message crisp. In private they test each other, break, mend, and test again. Perhaps that is the only honest version left, a dynasty that bleeds in rehearsal so it does not stumble on stage. The walls will go on listening. The country will go on guessing. And inside those rooms two men will keep trying to hammer a single shape out of two different tempers, royal iron heated by angry rose, cooled by duty, and lifted, still glowing, into another day.